It was a Tuesday, one of those days so aggressively average it should have been impossible for anything meaningful to happen. But meaning has a way of hiding in the cracks. I came home from work at 5:42 p.m., like always. I hung up my jacket, set my keys in the bowl she insisted we buy from that overpriced pottery place, and noticed something that didn't fit. Not something dramatic, no lipstick-stained collar, no stranger's wallet on the floor. No, it was smaller, and much worse for it. It was the dining room chair. The one directly across from her usual spot. It had been moved, only slightly, but enough that I noticed. I remember it clearly because I'm the one who vacuums the floors, and I always push the chairs in afterward. It's a habit born from boredom and quiet rage. But that chair, it had a shift in angle, a subtle scuff on the wood floor where it had scraped out and back. Maybe not suspicious to anyone else, but I don't live in anyone else's house. I live in mine. And I know that chair never moves unless someone is sitting in it. She was in the kitchen when I noticed, stirring the sauce she always burns. She smiled and said, "You're home early," even though I wasn't. Her tone felt just a hair too warm. I said nothing. Just walked over, looked at the table, and saw 2 wine glasses drying on the rack. We never used to. I don't drink during the week. She's the one who insists I shouldn't because it affects your sleep, babe. The glasses still had a faint red ring at the bottom, like they'd been used, rinsed, but not actually washed. Amateur mistake. Still, I said nothing. I kissed her cheek, asked what she was making, and listened to her ramble about garlic and cream and something she saw on TikTok. I nodded at all the right moments. But my mind was circling the table like a vulture. After dinner, I pretended to be tired and went upstairs. She stayed behind to scroll through her phone, probably texting him. I didn't go through her messages. That's not how I work. I don't dig through trash. I wait for it to stink on its own. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her laptop charger. It was plugged into the wall, but the cable was missing. Again, subtle. But this is a woman who panics if her battery drops below 80%. If she took the laptop out of the house, it was for a reason. She never takes it to work. She uses her office desktop there. So where did she go? What was she doing that required a laptop, wine, and a freshly angled chair at our dinner table? She came up half an hour later, kissed me on the forehead like I was her child, and went to take a shower. I followed. Not into the bathroom, just to the hallway, quiet and unnoticed. And I saw her reflection in the mirror through the cracked door. She was smiling. Smiling like someone who had a secret tucked behind their teeth. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so embarrassingly cliché. All that talk about working late, all those empty reassurances, all those nights she came home smelling like hand soap and someone else's cologne. And now it's a goddamn chair. That's what broke it. That's what told the truth. Not moans. Not texts. Not lingerie tossed carelessly into the hamper. A fucking dining room chair. I went to bed pretending to be asleep before she joined me. I felt her lie down, inch closer, her hand brushing my back, her breath warm against my neck. I didn't move, didn't flinch, just breathed evenly like a man who had no idea his wife had let someone else sit in his place, literally. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I just cataloged every detail. Her tone, the wine, the missing charger, the chair, the smile. Because when your soul gets hit, you don't scream. You calculate. In the moment she exhaled and fell asleep, I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling fan spinning in slow, mocking circles. I didn't plan to confront her. That would give her too much. Instead, I decided I'd make her remember that chair every time she sat down. Every time she poured a glass of wine. Every time she heard me walk in and wondered if I'd finally say something. But I wouldn't, not yet. No, I'd let the silence do the work. Let her imagine what I knew and what I didn't. Because the cruelest kind of revenge isn't about screaming. It's about staying. Staying calm. Staying quiet. Staying just long enough to make her wish I'd leave, because at least then, the punishment would be over. There was a time I would have sworn she was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not in that hopeless, romanticized way people say it when they're drunk or trying to win someone back. I meant it. She was steady, warm, and sharp, like a lighthouse you could actually touch. We built our life like clockwork. Meal preps on Sundays, date nights on Fridays, morning coffee rituals where I'd make the espresso and she'd pretend to hate the foam art, even though she posted pictures of it every single time. She used to talk to me about everything, from the color of the towels she wanted to buy to the weird dreams she had where her teeth fell out and turned into diamonds. It was normal, maybe even boring at times, but it was our boring. Then came the shift. Not a collapse. Not a scream. Just a quiet, disorienting pivot. It started with books. Books on finding your inner voice, on rediscovering your autonomy, on boundaries as self-love. They started appearing around the house like breadcrumbs. Next came the podcasts. I'd walk into the kitchen and hear some hyper-articulate influencer voice whispering about self-prioritization and toxic patterns in traditional partnerships. She'd pause at the moment I entered, smile like everything was fine, but that pause echoed louder than the content. She stopped sending me midday texts. You know the ones. Little things like "can't wait to see you" or "look at this dumb meme." I didn't even notice they were gone until a week passed, and I scrolled up to realize the last message she initiated was over 10 days ago. At first, I thought she was stressed. Work had been intense for her, and she'd just joined some women in leadership networking thing. I encouraged it, drove her to some of the meetings, told her to chase it hard. But that's the thing about pushing someone to grow. You don't expect them to grow away from you. Suddenly, she had dinners every other evening. Networking events, she'd say, even though they were never on her calendar. I once offered to come with her, just to meet some people. She gave me a weird half-laugh and said, "It's kind of a personal thing." That stung, but I shrugged it off. You don't get insecure about your wife having a life. Not if you trust her. Not if you're sane. But then I found the receipt. I wasn't even snooping. I'd gone to grab her keys from her purse because she left them in the car again. And tucked beside them, half crushed and faint with perfume, was a receipt for a boutique hotel 2 towns over. 2 glasses of wine. Dinner for 2. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, letting the implications breathe. Then I folded it and put it right back where I found it. That night, she kissed me a little more slowly than usual, like she was trying to reassure herself she still could. She told me she loved me. I told her I loved her back, and we both pretended we believed it. Her wardrobe changed next. She started wearing heels again, something she hadn't done in 3 years since she started working from home more. Her dresses got tighter, her lips glossier. "Just trying to feel confident again," she said, and I smiled like a supportive husband, even as I watched her spin in front of the mirror, turning slightly sideways to see how her hips curved. But never for me. Never once for me. She began locking her phone. Not outright, not stupidly. But little things, notifications turned off, screen always face down, a new PIN, because of work security, she claimed. Her Instagram went private. Then it disappeared entirely from me. "Weird, must be a glitch," she said when I asked. "I'll check it later." She never did. I watched her start sleeping closer to the edge of the bed. Not dramatically. Just an inch or 2 more space each week. I used to wrap my arm around her in the middle of the night, a habit so ingrained it felt like breathing. Now when I did, she'd subtly shift away, claiming she was too hot or her shoulder felt stiff. She started talking about going away for a weekend retreat, solo. Said she needed to reconnect with herself. The words made me want to laugh and punch a wall at the same time. She said them like she was telling me what groceries to get. No emotion, no guilt. Just sterile determination. I didn't ask questions. I nodded. I helped her pack. Because when you've spent years trusting someone, doubt feels like betrayal. I told myself maybe I was the one being distant. Maybe I'd been too distracted with work. Maybe she needed more from me. That's the cruelty of subtle betrayal. It doesn't slap you in the face. It whispers in your ear until you start wondering if your ears are the problem. I kept giving her space, even as that space became a canyon. I'd lie in bed at night and stare at the ceiling, counting the seconds until she came back from dinner, hoping the sound of the door wouldn't feel like a stranger breaking in. She still smiled. She still called me babe. But the smile never reached her eyes, and the word landed with the hollowness of an echo in an empty house. I didn't confront her. Not because I was scared, but because part of me still wanted to believe that maybe this was a phase, that maybe love could just reboot. But every time she touched my hand, I could feel the weight of someone else's fingerprints lingering on her skin. And that's when I started to change. Quietly. Invisibly. Preparing, not to ask why she betrayed me, but to make her wish she hadn't. It happened on a Sunday morning, the kind of soft, slow-moving day where nothing evil should exist. The sun had come in through the blinds and stripes, the smell of coffee hung in the air, and she was humming in the kitchen, some upbeat, mindless pop song that used to drive her crazy, but now she suddenly loved. I sat at the table pretending to scroll through news on my tablet, just observing her. She moved like she was in her own world, hair twisted up, wearing one of my old shirts like it meant something. And for a moment, I let myself believe maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe everything was salvageable. That's when it happened. Her phone lit up. It was on the counter, 2 feet from the sugar jar, screen up, no hesitation. Just a buzz, a flash. The message preview appeared like it was meant for me to see. Just one line. I can still taste you. When can I have more? The name? L. No emoji. No kiss. Just an initial. Clean. Cold. Calculated. My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I didn't flinch. Instead, I watched her. She didn't reach for the phone. She just let it sit there, still humming, eyes focused on the toaster like that text didn't exist, like those words weren't acid corroding everything I ever believed. That's what hit me, not the message, not the betrayal, but the ease with which she ignored it. The familiarity. She'd gotten comfortable with her secrets. She thought she'd trained me so well, I wouldn't even look. And maybe she was right, up until now. I stood up slowly, walked past her, leaned in to kiss her temple. She smiled, murmured something about eggs. I didn't respond. I just picked up the phone, calmly, silently, and handed it to her. She glanced down, saw the notification, and something flickered in her eyes. Not fear. Not guilt. Something colder. Like annoyance. Like I'd caught her mid-text, and I was the interruption. She didn't say a word. Just took the phone and slipped it into her pocket, then turned back to the toast. That's when the switch flipped. Not in her. She'd already made hers, long ago. No, in me. Something broke that doesn't make noise when it shatters. I looked at her like I was seeing a stranger in my kitchen. A woman wearing my shirt, eating my bread, humming my songs, with someone else's taste in her mouth. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't demand an explanation. I didn't want one. Because this wasn't about love anymore. This was about clarity. This was the moment the fog cleared, and I saw exactly what she was, a mask I'd been kissing for years. I poured myself a cup of coffee. Sat back down. Watched her put butter on her toast like nothing had happened. She thought I'd ignore it. Thought I'd brush it off like a bug bite, mildly irritating, quickly forgotten. She had no idea what she'd just done. Because now, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't confused. I was free. I had all the confirmation I needed. And unlike her, I wouldn't make the mistake of doing anything sloppy. She had gotten arrogant, careless. I wouldn't. I would wait. I would calculate. I would bury her with precision, not passion. Let her think I was still that oblivious husband. Let her keep thinking she had the upper hand. Because that's what makes the fall so much harder when you don't see it coming. When it's delivered by the man who made your coffee, kissed your forehead, and handed you your phone with a smile. The moment that message lit up, my heart didn't break. It crystallized. And in that crystal, I saw everything clearly, her patterns, her lies, her indifference. I saw every night she came home with someone else's touch still lingering. Every fake, I love you. Every manipulated moment meant to make me doubt myself instead of her. The war had begun. Quiet. Ruthless. I stirred my coffee with slow, steady circles and imagined how I would dismantle her life one perfect piece at a time. I didn't need to follow her. That's what amateurs do, trail her car like a jealous wreck. Pray she slips up. Hope the guilt shows on her face. No, I stayed where I always was. In plain sight. In our house. In our bed. Playing the role of the oblivious husband so perfectly, I could have won an Oscar. But behind the smile, I was already 3 steps ahead. I started with her calendar, the shared one we used for syncing appointments, birthdays, dentist visits. She had stopped adding her girls' nights to it about a month ago, but patterns are funny things. Even when people think they're being clever, they fall into rhythm. Thursday evenings. That's when the scent of different cologne lingered a little longer. That's when she came home exhausted, but with hair that looked like it had just been restyled. So I created my own pattern. I scheduled fake late-night conference calls on those Thursdays, claimed I had to work in the den with the door locked. She didn't question it. If anything, she seemed relieved. I listened carefully. No calls from her. No music. Just silence, like she was waiting. At exactly 8:43 p.m. one night, I heard the buzz. A car pulling up. Not ours. Different engine tone. Lower. Maybe a sports car. She left with her phone in her hand, wearing that new coat I didn't remember buying her. I didn't peek through the blinds. I didn't move. I just noted the time. The next day, I asked her how the book club was. She blinked, half a second too long, then said it was a really deep discussion on trauma bonding. Impressive. She was even starting to believe her own lies. I started monitoring the car mileage, not daily, just on Thursdays and Saturdays. I knew the route to her so-called wellness group. The round trip was 24 miles. Some weeks, her car clocked 56. One time, 71. I made a spreadsheet. Quiet, color-coded, precise. Then came the digital forensics. She had a second email. I found it when she used our shared laptop to check the weather, and Chrome's autofill showed an unfamiliar address. I didn't log in. That would be too obvious. Instead, I created a fake profile, a bland, forgettable man with a dog, a basic name, just enough charm to be intriguing. I followed her on a dating app she didn't know I knew she had. Within a week, she matched with me. Within 2 days, she was already flirting. She didn't recognize me. Why would she? The photo wasn't mine, but her words were very familiar. I feel like I'm finally rediscovering myself. My husband is sweet, but he doesn't really see me. That one hit differently. Not because it hurt, but because it was the exact line she used on me 2 years ago when we first started dating. Word for word. Her template. I didn't confront her. Instead, I used the fake profile to steer the conversation toward her real lover. Got her to admit his name, Liam. Said he was a quiet kind of intense. Said he made her feel more alive than she'd ever been. I screenshot everything. I saved the chats, the audio messages, even the one where she whispered she wished she could spend the night with him without having to lie. My jaw didn't tighten. My pulse didn't rise. I just created a folder labeled Truth, backed it up in the cloud, and deleted every trace from the laptop. Then I moved to her best friend, Carly, the one who always looked at me a little too long when we had dinner parties. She walked into the rooftop restaurant smiling, just a few minutes late, like always, coat draped over one arm, a new dress hugging her like it had something to prove. Her heels clicked on the tile like punctuation marks, sharp and confident, as if the last 6 months hadn't existed. She leaned down to kiss my cheek, and I let her, the scent of her perfume brushing against me like a false memory. I stood and pulled her chair out, the gentleman to the end, and we sat under the low, golden lights, city skyline behind us, the soft murmur of polite conversations all around. A jazz quartet played somewhere behind the glass. She looked beautiful, terrifyingly so. The kind of beautiful that could kill a man and walk free. "What's the occasion?" she asked, eyes gleaming, scanning the table. "You'll see," I said with a small smile, pouring her wine first, letting her get comfortable. We ordered food. She got the sea base. I didn't care what I picked. I watched her talk about work, about the podcast she'd been obsessed with lately, about how she was thinking of starting her own business. I nodded, occasionally offering a smile, never interrupting, just letting her build the illusion one brick higher. Then the server brought the dessert menu, and with it, the tray. Not a standard one. A black velvet tray, and on it, a single object, her necklace. Not just any necklace. The necklace. The one I found on the floor of the hotel room under the bed, 3 nights ago, after using the GPS history she forgot to disable. The one she said she lost on our anniversary trip last year. Her face changed before her mouth could lie. The smile dropped half an inch, her pupils constricted. Her throat made that small, involuntary twitch that people make when they're caught just before they speak. "Where did you get that?" she asked, voice low, suddenly cautious. I didn't answer. Instead, I took out my phone and tapped the screen once. A silent video began playing. I turned it to face her. It was her, walking into room 214 with Liam. The angle was high, discreet, captured from a hallway camera I bribed the night manager to let me review. Her hand in his. Her laugh. Her lips. She froze. Didn't breathe. Then it began. "It's not what you think," she whispered. The classic opening move. I said nothing. Just watched her squirm. He's a friend. We were talking," she stammered. Faster now, reaching for the wine glass. Her hand shook slightly. "This is ridiculous. You've been distant for months. You pushed me away." She was trying to pivot, trying to reclaim the narrative, but her voice was cracking. "You're not perfect either, you know," she added, desperate now. "You think you're so calm, so in control. It's suffocating." I leaned forward, just slightly, lowering my voice without lowering its weight. "You practiced that, didn't you?" I asked. "The excuses, the order. First deny, then blame me, then play the victim. How many times did you rehearse that speech on your way to Liam's bed?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her face was colorless now, pale, the weight of the moment dragging her down by the spine. "This isn't fair," she tried. "You set me up. You manipulated this. You wanted to catch me." I smiled, just a crack of one. "No," I said. "I wanted to believe you were still who I married. You're the one who made me stop." She stared at me, something wild flickering behind her eyes now, rage, confusion, maybe even admiration. "So what now?" she asked, voice trembling. "What? You're gonna leave me here? Humiliate me in public? Make a scene?" I shook my head slowly, eyes never leaving hers. "I won't give you that satisfaction," I said. "You want drama, a meltdown, a villain to blame. But I'm not your villain. I'm your mirror." She blinked, and for a moment, I saw something real break in her. Like she finally understood that this wasn't a game she could win with crocodile tears and practiced lines. "You think you're so clever," she spat suddenly, her mask cracking now, her voice rising just enough for the nearby table to glance over. "You think you're in control. You think he's going to choose you over me." I just looked at her. Let the silence spread like smoke. Let her choke on her own words. She bit her lip, looked around, eyes darting, suddenly aware of how alone she was at that table. She looked small now, fragile. No more masks, no more power. Just a woman caught in her own web. "You don't get it," she whispered finally, eyes glossy. "You'll regret this." I leaned back, folded my hands, and studied her like I was reading a case file. "Maybe," I said calmly. "But you'll relive this moment every time someone looks you in the eye and doesn't believe a word you say." Her lip trembled. The music played on. The city kept twinkling outside, indifferent. I didn't leave. Not yet. I just let her sit there, in the wreckage of her performance, knowing the final act hadn't even begun. She followed me out of the restaurant like a storm with legs, heels clacking across the marble like thunder cracks, her voice already rising, panicked and furious and desperate to pull me back into the game I had just walked out of. "So that's it?" she shouted behind me, not caring who heard, not even pretending to hold it together now. "You just drop a bomb like that and walk away? You think you're some kind of goddamn mastermind? You think you're better than me?" I didn't answer. I just kept walking toward the elevator, hands in my pockets, calm as a surgeon before the first cut. She caught up, grabbed my arm, spun me around, her eyes wild now, red at the edges, lips trembling with fury. "Say something," she snapped, eyes boring into mine, like if she stared hard enough, she could still find the man who used to need her. "You don't get to just shut down. You don't get to play stoic after everything. After how cold you've been. After how empty you made me feel." I looked at her, at the way she stood there with mascara clinging to the corner of her eye like a desperate excuse. "No one made you lie down in someone else's bed," I said quietly. The words landed like a punch, clean and precise. She recoiled slightly, mouth open, but no words came out for a second. "You smothered me," she tried next, softer now, stepping into the guilt tactic like a well-rehearsed scene. "You made everything about your routines, your rules, your perfect little life." I couldn't breathe. "You never saw me." I tilted my head slightly, studying her like a glass sculpture with a crack running right down the center. "I saw you perfectly," I said. "That's why this ends now." She scoffed, shaking her head, stepping back. "You're so full of yourself. You think you're this perfect man? You think any woman would put up with how emotionally dead you are?" Her voice was louder now, attracting looks from passing guests in suits and dresses, but she didn't care. Her anger was all she had left. "You were boring. Predictable. No passion. No edge. Just a walking to-do list with a pulse." I didn't flinch. I just let her finish. Then, slowly, I leaned in just enough for only her to hear me. "And yet you were still desperate to keep me from leaving." That shut her up for a second. Just a second. Then came the venom. "You never made me feel wanted," she hissed. "You never took control. Maybe if you were a real man, none of this would have happened." I laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. "You confuse chaos with desire," I replied. "That's why you need to be worshipped by strangers. Because deep down, you know the real you isn't worth staying for." Her jaw locked. Her hands clenched. Her breathing came shallow. "You think you're better than me?" she asked again, voice brittle, shaky. "You're just a coward. You're walking away because you can't handle being hurt." I stared at her for a long second, then said, "No. I'm walking away because you're not worth hurting over." The air between us changed. Something in her broke, not loudly, but quietly, like a snapped string inside a piano. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. No insult. No plea. Just silence. And I could see it then, the full weight of her own actions crashing down on her all at once. Not because she regretted what she did, but because she finally realized she couldn't manipulate her way out of it. Not with charm. Not with tears. Not with sex. Not with shouting. I wasn't on the hook anymore. I had cut the line, and she was drowning in the space between us. "You're really done?" she asked, voice now trembling, not angry, not even indignant, just scared. "After everything?" "Just like that." I nodded once. "I was done the moment I knew. Everything since then was just me watching you dig your own grave." Her hand went up like she wanted to slap me, but she didn't. She couldn't. Because she knew what I knew. Hitting me wouldn't make me bleed. Not now. Not when the damage was already done and carved so cleanly into her own reflection. "Please," she said finally, softer than I'd ever heard her, like a child lost in a nightmare. "Please don't do this. I can fix it. We can fix it. You still love me. I know you do." I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who once meant everything to me, now unraveling right in front of my eyes. Every mask stripped away. Every game exposed. "I did love you," I said, calm as death. But the woman I loved never existed. She broke then. Fully. Lips quivering. Eyes wet. Chest heaving like someone trying to breathe through smoke. She stepped toward me, but I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I let the silence build like a coffin around her, every second proving that she no longer had any power here. She opened her mouth to speak again, but I raised a hand, not to hit, not to comfort, just to stop her. A gesture of finality, of closure. Her lips pressed together. Her arms fell limp. And we stood there, on that rooftop, beneath the stars and the city lights, surrounded by strangers who suddenly seemed to understand that something terrible had just ended. But I didn't walk away. Not yet. I let her sit in it. Let her taste the silence. Let her realize that the worst part of losing me wasn't my anger. It was my indifference. Revenge began not with fire, but with silence. I didn't need to yell, threaten, or make a scene. She'd already done all the damage I needed. I just had to press it into the right places and let it break her. The night after the rooftop confrontation, while she was still texting paragraphs of apologies and begging to talk like adults, I was in front of my laptop, logged into every joint account, every shared login, every thread she'd forgotten was still in my name. I didn't shut them down immediately. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I diverted. Quietly. Strategically. Our joint savings? Transferred my half, legally, to a new, secured account under my name only. I left just enough in the joint one to make her think nothing had changed. The credit cards she used for errands and personal wellness expenses? Canceled. Replaced with cards in my name only. Utilities, electricity, water, internet, transferred under her name. Lease renegotiated. I'd be moving out soon, but she wouldn't know it until the day it happened. Her car? Technically mine. I'd paid for it. Registered in my name. I scheduled a tow for the morning she had her networking brunch. Left a note with the key on the table that simply read, "Repossessed." No drama. Just removal. I collected every piece of digital evidence, screenshots, chat logs, location data, video files, and organized them chronologically in a secure folder. I labeled it Fidelity Archive. Then I made multiple copies, external drive, encrypted cloud, and one physical USB, which I sealed in a plain envelope and mailed to her father. Not with a letter. Just the facts. Dates. Names. Footage. Because some betrayals deserve to be unwrapped over coffee at a quiet kitchen table with the sinking realization that your daughter has destroyed everything good she ever had. Her mother called me 3 days later, sobbing. Not to defend her, just to say she was sorry. That she didn't raise her to be like this. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The truth spoke louder than I ever could. I contacted our lawyer and initiated the divorce quietly. No threats, no warnings. I requested full control over my assets, including the property we had partially invested in together, citing her infidelity with documented proof. In the jurisdiction we lived in, it mattered. Infidelity still cost you, especially when it was backed by GPS records, hotel receipts, and clear video footage. I froze the process of spousal support. She wouldn't see a cent. I'd already rerouted my payroll into a separate account, closed off her access to my benefits, and removed her as a dependent from my health insurance. She wouldn't realize it until she went to fill a prescription and got denied at the counter. I made a quiet call to HR at her workplace. Not vindictive, not loud. Just factual. I informed them that someone from within their company had used corporate hours, a company laptop, and possibly resources to conduct an extramarital affair, potentially with someone tied to a client. I didn't demand anything. I simply provided the files and let policy do what it was made to do. She worked in a firm obsessed with public image. Within a week, she was under investigation. Within 3, suspended pending review. Her, Liam, was also employed there. Now both were bleeding from the same vein. Her friends, the ones she'd slowly pushed me away from over the years, received a different package. Not evidence. Just a farewell letter from me. Calm. Measured. Regretful. It explained why they wouldn't be seeing me again at birthdays or holidays. It didn't name names. It didn't have to. But it included just enough truth to make them curious. Curious enough to reach out to her. And when she fed them whatever twisted version she had rehearsed, they'd already have seen the cracks in her story. People notice lies more easily when they're looking for them. I didn't post anything online. No public callouts. No emotional posts. Just disappeared from our joint pages, unfollowed her quietly, changed my relationship status to private. My silence made more noise than any caption ever could. But the final move, my favorite, came 2 weeks later. I moved out of the house we shared while she was away on one of her self-care retreats. I didn't tell her. I didn't leave a note. I just vanished. Emptied my half of the closet. Took the things that mattered. Left behind the rest. The memories, the echo of our life. The empty frame where our wedding photo once stood. When she walked in that night, she found a quiet apartment. Furniture untouched, but the energy different. Hollow. There was no goodbye, no warning, no scream. Just space. Cold, deliberate space. She called 30 times. I didn't pick up once. Because by then, she wasn't calling out of love. She was calling because she realized she was finally alone. Not just physically, but strategically, financially, socially, professionally. She had nothing left to stand on. And all I had done was step back and let gravity do the work. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day people usually reserve for peace, for family, for pretending life is gentler than it really is. Her parents had invited us to lunch. One of those casual gatherings with wine, soft music, and the illusion of domestic warmth. She was excited, overly so, dressed in pastel like she was stepping into a role. She still thought she could salvage her image, still believed she could control the damage if she just smiled wide enough and laughed often enough. She didn't know that everything had already been arranged. The moment we walked in, I felt the shift. Her mother's smile was strained. Her father wouldn't meet her eyes, and Carly, her best friend, her ride or die, was already seated, arms crossed, lips pursed. I sat next to Carly, nodded politely, and waited. She kept glancing at me, expecting me to speak first, to offer some artificial explanation that would let her steer the conversation. But I didn't. I let silence be my weapon. And it worked better than any confrontation ever could. We had barely made it past appetizers when her father cleared his throat and placed a small manila envelope on the table between the wine glasses. She looked at it like it was a rattlesnake. "What's this?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light. No one answered. So she opened it. And inside, printouts, screenshots, transcripts, photos, hotel receipts, GPS data, a copy of the internal disciplinary email from her job. Every lie, every betrayal, every careless move, neatly laid out in chronological order like a criminal case file. She sifted through them faster and faster, her breath catching, her eyes darting to me, to Carly, to her parents, to the door. "This is insane," she said, the laugh too loud, too fake. "You guys are acting like I murdered someone. People make mistakes." Her mother didn't blink. Her father looked like he wanted to disappear. Carly stood up slowly and said, "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." Repeatedly. That one hit. Her face faltered. "Don't do this," she said, eyes now glistening. "Don't gang up on me like this. You don't know the full story. You don't understand what I've been going through." I sipped my drink and said nothing. She turned to me, desperate now, her voice cracking. "Say something. Please." I met her gaze, cool and unwavering. "They know the story," I said. "Your story told itself." She swallowed hard, blinking too fast. "You're twisting everything. You planned this. You're trying to ruin me." Carly cut in again. "You did that all by yourself." Then the final blow came. Her phone buzzed on the table. A message from Liam, name and all, right there for everyone to see. She scrambled to silence it, but it was too late. Her father stood up and walked out of the room without a word. Her mother followed, wiping at her face. She stood frozen, staring at her phone like it had betrayed her too. "This is so Ed," she muttered, finally breaking character. "You're all insane. He's not even the only one who she stopped herself too late. And the silence that followed was deafening. Carly turned away, her last ounce of respect draining visibly. Her mother's voice, cold and sharp, cut in from the hallway. You need to leave. She looked at me, pleading. Please. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Her voice was small now, shattered. The mask was gone. Her makeup was smudged, her hands shaking, her lip trembling. I don't even know who I am anymore, she whispered. I stood up, adjusted my cuffs, and stepped past her. But I didn't leave. I stood in the doorway, facing her, watching her fall apart in real time. Watching the girl who once thought she could lie her way through anything realize that the ground she stood on had finally collapsed. Her knees buckled slightly, but she caught herself on the chair. Please, she said again, but there was no one left to hear her. Not the family she betrayed. Not the friend she used. Not the man she thought she could manipulate until the end. And I stayed right there, didn't yell, didn't gloat, didn't even blink. I let her see me. Let her feel the weight of everything she lost in a single, silent stare. Because she could survive anger. She could survive abandonment. But the one thing she could never survive was this, me watching, unmoved, while her world burned to ash. It all came to a head at her sister's engagement party, a glittering garden event packed with family, friends, colleagues, people who still smiled at her like she wasn't radioactive yet. I hadn't planned on saying anything, not there, not that night. I was just there to keep appearances clean, to let her stew in the discomfort of pretending everything was fine while knowing the walls were crumbling around her. But then Liam showed up, uninvited, wearing a smug smile and a blazer like he belonged there. She froze when she saw him, like she hadn't expected him to be dumb enough or arrogant enough to come. Her eyes darted between him and me, and that's when I saw it, the panic, the cracks in her calm. And then he spoke, loud enough for everyone around to hear. Didn't think I'd actually show, huh? He grinned at her, clearly tipsy. You said it'd be just us. Silence rippled outward like a bomb had gone off. She tried to laugh it off, brushing his arm, whispering something through clenched teeth, but it was too late. I stepped forward, calm, voice clear. Just us. I echoed, loud enough to turn heads. That's what you promised him? At your sister's engagement? The crowd around us stilled. Her sister's face went pale. Her mother stiffened. Her father slowly turned to face her. Don't do this here, she hissed at me, eyes burning. This isn't about you. No, I said, voice rising. This is about you. It's always been about you, hasn't it? Your needs, your secrets, your double life. She stepped toward me, lowering her voice. You don't want to make a scene. No, I snapped, louder now. You already did. When you turned our home into a revolving door. When you invited him into our life behind my back. When you let everyone believe you were the victim while you were tearing everything apart. A few people gasped. One of her coworkers tried to step in, saying, maybe we should all calm down, but I waved him off without even looking. You want calm? I shouted, eyes locked on her. I've been calm for months. While you lied. While you snuck around. While you used my money to fund weekends with him. While you looked me in the eye and said you loved me with his fingerprints still on your skin. She slapped me then. Not hard, but enough to draw the attention of every single person in that garden. Enough to freeze the entire party. My cheek stung, but I didn't blink. Feel better, I said. Or was that just another way to dodge accountability? You're a narcissist, she screamed, shaking now, mascara streaking. You're cold. You're controlling. I had to lie just to breathe around you. Her mother finally stepped forward, voice shaking. Is it true? She asked. Everything he said? She spun on her mother. You don't understand what it was like. She sobbed. He was always so perfect, so put together. I couldn't compete. I needed something for me. So you destroyed everything for a dopamine hit, I said, quieter now but sharper than ever. You tore apart a life we built because your ego couldn't handle peace. You don't get to stand there and act innocent, she snarled. You think you're some tragic hero? You were never present. You were never real. No, I said, stepping closer, my voice low and lethal. I was real. Every damn day. I showed up. I gave you stability, loyalty, honesty. And you traded it for a man who can't even look me in the eye now. I turned to Liam, who had started inching toward the gate. What? No defense. No heartfelt explanation. You were bold enough to sleep with her. Now you can't even stand here. He mumbled something, eyes on the floor, and slipped out the side gate like a coward. She looked around and saw the judgment pouring in from every angle. Friends whispering, cameras recording, family staring with pity and disgust. "You've made your point," she said, broken now. "You've ruined me. Are you happy?" "You ruined yourself," I said. "I just stopped hiding it for you." Her legs gave out, and she dropped onto the grass, head in her hands, shaking, gasping for air through sobs that no longer earned her sympathy. Her sister knelt beside her, torn between comfort and contempt. I looked around the silent crowd, then back at her, wrecked in the center of her perfect party, in front of everyone she ever tried to impress. "This isn't vengeance," I said. "This is truth, and it was always coming for you." Then I turned and walked away, not fast, not triumphant, just steady, letting every eye follow me, every whisper burn into her like acid. I didn't need to shout. The silence I left behind said everything. After the party, her world collapsed faster than she ever imagined possible, because the truth, once unchained, doesn't crawl, it runs. Within 48 hours, HR at her firm officially terminated her under ethics violations and conduct unbecoming. After the internal investigation confirmed what I had already laid out for them in black and white. The moment the company realized their clients might be dragged into the mess she created, they cut her loose without ceremony, without severance. Her LinkedIn vanished. Her office access revoked. Just like that, she went from rising star to cautionary tale. Her friends, those polished brunch cliques who once fed on her curated photos and filtered captions, went silent. Some unfollowed, others blocked. A few messaged me privately to say, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." They did. They just didn't care until the image shattered. Her phone stopped lighting up. The girls' nights dried up. The invitations disappeared. The small-town whispers started, and everywhere she went, someone was watching. At the grocery store, the bank, the post office, people turned their backs, stepped aside, avoided eye contact. Even her hairdresser canceled her appointment and never returned the call. When the world stopped giving her attention, Liam vanished too. The moment it became real, when she no longer had the home, the car, the job, the secrecy, he was gone. Blocked her. Deleted every trace. Not even a goodbye. Just silence. The kind of silence reserved for messes you regret touching. She moved 3 hours away, back to the kind of city where no one asks questions, where she could rent a basement apartment under someone else's name and work part-time at a floral shop, smile fake for strangers while dead behind the eyes. I knew all this not because I checked, but because she told me. She called a month later, from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. Her voice was barely recognizable. Tired, hoarse, the kind of broken that doesn't cry anymore because it's too used to pain. "I miss you," she said. "I still love you. I don't know who I am without you. Please, please talk to me." I didn't respond. Not then. Not for the next dozen voicemails or the 3 handwritten letters that arrived at my new place. She found the address. I expected she would. When she showed up uninvited, 2 months after the collapse, standing on my doorstep in the rain like a scene from a movie, soaked, shivering, makeup washed clean, I opened the door and looked her dead in the eyes. She wasn't wearing the mask anymore. She wasn't wearing anything, really, just regret and whatever pride she hadn't bled out already. "Please," she whispered. "You were right about everything. I was selfish. I destroyed us. But I swear to God, I would do anything to take it back." I stared at her, at the woman I once would have set the world on fire for. Now a stranger. "I don't hate you," I said calmly. "But I would walk past you in the street without blinking." Her lip trembled. "You don't mean that." I tilted my head. "Strange. I don't even remember your name anymore." And I closed the door. Just like that. No slamming. No shouting. Just finality. The kind that cuts deeper than rage ever could. She stood there for another few seconds, then left. I never heard from her again. And that was it. The end of her story. The end of ours. She had bet everything on her ability to lie, manipulate, and charm her way out of consequence. But the house of cards doesn't survive once the wind changes. And when the dust settled, I was still standing stronger, colder, but free. She was just a ghost now. A cautionary echo. A woman who had everything and lit it on fire to chase sparks. And me? I rebuilt. Quietly. Precisely. And better. Thank you for listening to my story. I've told it exactly how it happened, no more, no less. Now tell me, where are you listening from? Did it hit you the way I hoped it would?